ஓம் நமோ பகவதே ஸ்ரீரமணாய. வேதநாயகன் வேதபூஷணன் வேதமேயுருவாயவன் காதலாய் பரவாழ்வி நீர் கடிதேறி நின்ற களிப்பிலான். The Ramanastuti Panchakam, which was written, composed in Virupaksha cave around the year 1911 or 1912, one verse says, "The Lord of the Vedas, the jewel of the Vedas, He is the Vedas incarnate, the delighter in life, eternal gained by the power of His love, is Ramana Sadguru." And another verse in Ribu Gita, chapter 28, the explanation of the essence of the four Vedas, chapter 28, explanation of the four great sayings from the Vedas. The second verse says, absolute knowledge is Brahman, that is Prajnanam Brahma, which appears at the end of the eminent Rig Veda, is one such saying. The saying, I am Brahman, Aham Brahmasmi, which is at the end of faultless Yajurveda, is another saying. That you are Tattvamasi at the end of the delusionless Samaveda is one of the sayings. This self is Brahman, Ayamatma Brahma, at the end of the rare Atharva Veda is one of the sayings. So the Hindu life is always centered around the Vedic teachings. Though most of the Hindus, we don't know what the Veda teaches, what is Veda. Nobody have read all the four Vedas in the sense, nobody in the sense, there are very few people who are conversant with the four Vedas. But as Bhagavan says, one can follow the Vedic teaching. Veda Adhyanam is not for all, that is, learning of Veda is not meant for all, but anybody and everybody can follow the Veda and Vedic teachings. So, the above two verses chanted here describes, the first one describes Bhagavan as the Veda Swarupa, the form of Veda. And the other one from Ribu Gita gives the essence of the four Vedas in four small words like Aham Brahmasmi, Ayamatma Brahma, Tattvamasi, Prajnanam Brahma. These are the four sayings, the essence of the four Vedas in one word, as like. So the Hindu life is always meant from the individual to the universal self, which should be the essence of the Vedic teaching. My name is Veeraraghavan, though for practical purposes I am called Chandramouli, because the Hindu way of naming is also has got its own structure. Like the grandfather, great-grandfather's name should appear, so that we should be always grateful to the ancestors who have given the life, who have given the provision for our life. So they should be remembered with gratitude. So all the great-sons, great-grandsons are named after the elders. So it is not in the practice of the Hindus to call by that name, because it is like calling the grandfather, grandfather, come like that. So always there is a second name given which is used for practical purposes. So I am called Veeraraghavan, maybe my great grandfather's name. So I also come from a Vedic family, though I don't know a word of Veda. But in my childhood, when I was about 5 or 6 years old, I clearly remember that my father was telling me that my next elder brother is being sent to a Vedic school to learn Vedas. At that time, I don't know why I got this thought. and within myself I got angry with my father. He is not sending me for learning Vedas, and he is saying sending my elder brother. Then later my father explained to me, because we come from the Vedic family, at least one person from the family should be conversant with Vedas. And my grandfather was doing the profession of Vedic chanting, and in our childhood he used to make us sit in the evening when he was doing the 3 times Sandhya Vandanam. He used to make all the children, great-grandchildren and all, and he used to make us chant so many Sanskrit slokas, and even he used to teach us how to chant all the particular this one without any fault. So the one thing which made me to not get into the Sanskrit or Veda or these things was, I remember clearly, once when I was misspelled one of the mantra or some Sanskrit sloka, my grandfather warned me, it should be chanted properly without pronunciation mistake. Then he narrated a small incident from Ramayana, where the Kumbhakarna wanted Nityastva, that is ever living, non-dying boon from the Saraswati or the god or whoever he was doing tapasya to get the boon. So at that time it is said that Saraswati sat on his tongue and asked, instead of Nityastva is the word which will grant the ever-living, non-perishing, non-dying boon, the word for that, Nityastva. So it is said that Saraswati sat on his tongue and made a small tilt, and when he asked the boon, when Brahma or whichever Lord he was praying, and they appeared, what boon you want, he asked Nidrastva. Nidrastva means sleeping, always sleeping. So it is said he was married to it, and the Lord who appeared to grant the boon said, yes, tatastu, amen, like that. So that's why this Kumbhakarna was made to sleep 6 months continuously, and 6 months only he was awake. So my grandfather warned me, we should not misspell the Sanskrit words. So as a child it got into my brain so strong, I almost later when the Tamil is there, when I can make meaning, when I can learn everything, why should I go for the somewhat it has become a foreign language because of the cultural change, this, that, everything. Okay, let me make my the life or spiritual or whatever the religious life with what available in Tamil, so that I can understand better, I can make meaning, I can learn from others, whereas for Sanskrit we have to search for people, and then it's all the as every almost every decade the language is getting degenerated. So I just to avoid all this one I decided, okay, let me go to Tamil and all. So maybe I have some my elders tapas or some puru punya. I somehow was drawn to Bhagwan. Bhagwan brought me here, and I feel now so satisfied in life, and every time when I feel that spiritually or religiously I am not coming up to the expectation of a person who has to do, I always remember an English poem which I studied in my school days. There was an army officer who was fighting, and in the fight he was caught. I have forgotten the poem. And he was caught, and it was ordered that he should be hanged the next day. So the army officer was brooding over what he achieved in his life and whatever he achieved, everything. And the poem goes to say that the overnight his thought process gave him the full satisfaction that he has achieved what he has to achieve in this limited human life. So he remembers his childhood, how he played, how he came up to the expectation of his parents, and this, that, and all. It goes the poem like that. I have forgotten the poem. But the essence of the poem is he was very much satisfied, and he was just ready, mentally, physically, psychologically ready to be hanged without any unwillingness as far as his mental setup is concerned. So now having come to Bhagwan, who is now we chanted that he is the Veda Swarupa, though I have not learnt Vedas, I have brought to the presence of Bhagwan in Ramanashramam Tiruvannamalai. And in this limited life, with all limitations of my own limitations and all other limitations, I will fully satisfied. And this is my limit. Somehow I feel this is the limit. Everybody has got their own limitation. This limitation is I have lived up to the know what is my own expectation, and Bhagwan will fulfill the balance this one. So now coming to the Vedic, my family. My father was a professional Vedic chanter, in the sense, in the villages there's a setup. Especially I do not know about the Indian kings, how the setup was there, but the British Indian social setup was such, continued even after the independence for 2-3 decades. Now it is completely gone, and various changes have taken place in the Indian constituencies and rules and regulations. But there is always a land is provided to each professional people in the village. For example, my father was the village Vedic professional person. So he was given by the government an acre or two land for his survival. The purpose is, during even the during the Indian king's time also, once their livelihood is they need not worry, they will concentrate more on their profession. So for the livelihood, and during those time, the land is the main income or survival. They get rice or whatever, all the needs of the day-to-day life for making a decent living. So like that, even barbers, even the dhobis, and even the temple drummers, all are provided an acre or two land. From the income of that land, either by money or by paddy or any eatable provisions, their life, the worldly life is somewhat taken care, so that their profession can be concentrated with devotion and sincerity. So in that way, my father also had an acre or two land. It is called Vedamanyam. So my father about 2-3 decades back only disposed it off, because the Indian constitution have changed. It almost became, whoever were the enjoying the landed property at that time, it became their property, and most of them have sold away. So my father, being the Vedic professional person designated by the village, either officially or unofficially or by tradition, he used to advise people on small things, like any small family disputes. And even I clearly remember when people fall sick in the village, there is no doctors or hospitals in the villages, even now in India. So many people, when the family, somebody falls sick, they used to come to my father and ask, sir, please give some vibhuti with mantra chanted, so that we can apply it on the patient's forehead. They will become all right. So I myself used to take that the chanted vibhuti. My father used to make some mantra and do the vibhuti with my Vedic chanting, and he used to make it a small packet and give it to me. I used to give it to the village person, whoever comes with sickness report. We can even recall this incident where in the Pachaman Koil, where Bhagwan was living, a Muslim fell sick, and they thought the previous day or a few days before, he killed a monkey. And they thought and the monkeys have come and reported to Bhagwan with the dead monkey, and Bhagwan said, yeah, all have to die one day, so don't worry. He consoled the monkeys, and the monkeys taken away the dead monkey, and next day this Muslim fell ill, and when they could not bring him into normal physical health, somebody reported, is a curse of Bhagwan, that's why it has happened. You go and fall at his feet and get his blessings, then only your person will be okay. So those family people came and begged Bhagwan to forgive him. Then Bhagwan said, I curse nobody, I bless nobody, it is not my fault, it is due to this one, take him to hospital, take to doctor. but they were insisting that you must bless him and give some vibhuti, then only we will go. So it is said Bhagavan went to the kitchen, took the ashes from the kitchen and he gave it to those people, and they applied that ash which is called vibhuti, and they applied it on the Muslim's forehead. He got cured. So like this, it's a tradition even now. When somebody falls sick, immediately they will apply vibhuti. If there is some, those who can chant some Vedic mantras and they can do it with mantra chanting, the vibhuti has got more effect. So I have seen and I have given myself to many people after my father gave the vibhuti packet to those people, and they come and the next day or after a few days come and thank us. Oh, Swami, because of your vibhuti we got cured. So what I want to impress here is the Vedic chanting has got its own effect, and whatever is done during Vedic chanting is small work like making ash packet, so it has got its effect. And my grandfather was doing the same profession. My father's brother, one brother also, he learnt Veda and he was practicing this Vedic profession like conducting marriages, conducting pujas during Ganesh Chaturthi, Navaratri and other things, and even death ceremonies. Of course, for death ceremonies there are some special people who has to do different mantras. So normally those who do the death ceremonies are not invited for some auspicious thing. There are some classifications like that. So my father was also one such person who used to do all the Vedic connected rituals in the individual houses in the village, and my father was going to at least about 5 to 10 villages in and around, where already by the time in 1950s and 60s the deterioration of that Vedic tradition and supporting the persons chanting Veda with land and other worldly wealth. So my father used to go by cycle to many villages doing this profession. So what I would like to conclude is, though I did not learn Veda, not that I hate Veda, but because it has to be perfectly done. In the sense that, as already I told you, I told that the Vedic chanting should be perfect. The words should come out very properly. Mischanting will give the mismeaning and mis-effect. So that's the one in my childhood where my grandfather told me that you have to be very careful when we chant Sanskrit or Vedic mantras, made me to know get away or not to go into that field unless we are perfect about it. But as I already told, the Vedic end of all the Vedas, Aham Brahmasmi, Tattvamasi, Ayamatma Brahma, Prajnana Brahma. That is the one word essence of the four Vedas, each one word or one sentence. So the chanting of Veda and learning Veda and teaching Veda is ultimate effect is to get self-knowledge or get self-realization. And I am very happy to say that Bhagavan brought me here, who is the Veda Swarupa, and the end result of Vedic and learning Vedic chanting and Vedic meaning and everything will be fulfilled by coming to Bhagavan. And I am completely confident about it that Bhagavan will take me to the ultimate end. Thank you.